Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Yay!
We're back!
We're back!
We're back! Back and better than ever. Well, I don't know about that, but I don't like doing the MuseCast from my current location. I prefer my home office, my surroundings. This feels weird. I'm surprised to see you in your home office because I just saw you in the building because you had no power for the last 2 days, Dan Kent.
That's right. Yeah, within the last 14 minutes, the power finally came back on. So, yeah,
We're back, baby.
I was rolling the dice that it would come on in time for us to record. And, Barbara texted me while I was at the office and said, the trucks are here. And so I, on faith, came home that they would have it done by the time. And there were wires laying all over the ground out there. That's how bad it was.
I know it was bad. Faith of a mustard seed. Dan Kent, exercised it and came through.
That's right, and it helped that Barbara brought little chocolates out there for the guys. I think that pushed them over the edge. So
yeah. That's that is so sweet of. I'm not surprised. She's just the most thoughtful human. I love her. So I can't say Happy Muse Day as in Happy Tuesday, but it is Happy Muse Day as in Happy Wednesday. So for those of you who are trying to find us yesterday afternoon, we were not on because a storm did roll through, and some of the areas throughout the Twin Cities and surround were hit kind of bad, and Dan Kent was one. Our area was hit as well, so we had no power, no Wi-Fi, even cell phone towers are being affected. So it was just a hot mess. I felt like I was living through the apocalypse for a minute. What's going on? What do we do? It was kind of crazy.
I think a couple more days without electricity and I would be out back with a spear and war paint, hunting squirrels. So
I'm telling you, we were this close to Lord of the Flies. We were this close.
Yeah.
So anyway, we missed you guys yesterday, but we're here today. We're gonna get it done. Happy Muse Day. Welcome to the MuseCast. He's Dan Kent. I'm Shawna Boren, and today we are going to talk about Agents of Shalom. And as has been the case for much of the series, we got to hear from Greg, tag teamed with Bill, and so it was a good time to hear from those guys. And honestly, we're a day late in doing this, so I feel like Sunday was ages ago. I'm already next Sunday looking forward to hearing from hint Dan Kent, and so you're gonna have to bring me back to this, Dan, because I'm just. It was so long ago.
Yeah. Well, and even I was just looking at my notes and I'm like, I don't really remember some of this, but I'm going to go with it and we'll give the summary and see where that leads us. But it was another tag team thing. I'm starting to wonder, maybe Bill might be able to do my job here as well and do the MuseCast for me.
No, absolutely not. I adore Bill. Listen, I warned him on Sunday. I said, listen, I know you're trying to come for my job, so I'm going to need you to settle down, sir, and just cut it out. So, no, it's been fun hearing from him. Not just fun. That's not the right word. It has been enlightening. It has been really great and a blessing to hear from him. But I'm going to need you to stay where you are, partner. All right. We got this thing.
Sounds good. Well, Agents of Shalom was the name of the sermon in this series called Political Distortions, where we're looking at the heart postures that can help us get through this election season and all of the polarization and political yeehaws of this world that we're in right now. And Agents of Shalom really does focus on shalom. And Greg starts off by looking at Colossians 1:19 and 20, where we are told that God took on humanity, became fully human for the sake of this type of peace called shalom. Now, this is not peace like I sit out on a dock on a quiet night looking at the calm water where there's no conflict, there's no frustration. It's more than that. It's at least that, but it's more than that. This shalom is about not just a lack of something, but a fullness of something. It's about having wholeness and joy and harmony in one's life, and it is the heart of God's being is this profound life and joy and fullness, and the Spirit is at work in the world to bring about this type of peace, this shalom. And we, as believers, we are invited into this work to bring shalom into the world. And so that was sort of the foundation of the sermon. From there, Bill swings in and talks about Matthew 5:9, and this is where it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And he really focuses on how, the peacemakers are blessed. The blessings of a peacemaker has the most intimate related kind of consequence, and I don't like to say reward, but it's sort of like what's associated with being a peacemaker is that you have this most intimate relationship with God, in the sense that you are this child of God. And he just notes that this is not something that's emphasized in the Old Testament. This is something that Christ sort of makes new as part of his good news. And so Jesus prioritizes this peacemaking, even this kind of seeking shalom, even in the Roman Empire, under the Pax Romana, under this brutal, violent, oppressive sort of government. Even here, this is emphasized, to be peacemakers. And to do this, it comes at a cost. In order to be peacemakers, it costs us something, because it's so easy to not be peacemakers, to be rabble rousers, to be kind of, I don't know what the rebels, to be the rebellion. That's very romantic, even, to be all of that. But to be peacemakers, it requires us to do things, to sacrifice things. Like, we can't idolize our own team, or we can't let ourselves get addicted to the buzz of superiority, of being right. And I think that's so that's his first point. Then Greg swings back in, and he just asks this question: is there a time where we don't make peace? And he's talking about, like, people when things like the Nazis were happening, and the extermination of the Jews, and under Hitler. Would this be a time when maybe peacemaking isn't the right thing? And so they just sort of explored that together, and they talked about Dr. Martin Luther King and how he absolutely attacked segregation and racism as evil, but he never attacked people. And so and those that sort of serves as sort of a template for how both Greg and Bill understand peacemaking in the New Testament, that we fight ideologies, not people. And then they closed out the sermon with 4 takeaways, or 4 kind of I don't even want to say takeaways. They're more like things to remember as we're pursuing peacemaking. The first one is that peacemaking is not always successful, and so we do it out of duty. We do it because we're called to do it. We do it because we are children of God. But God didn't bring full shalom even when Jesus was here. In fact, Jesus's peacemaking efforts ended with him on the cross, and so we should be careful about what our expectations for our own peacemaking efforts are. And yet, we're called to do it anyway. Number 2, peacemaking is a habit of the heart, and they just kind of talked about what that might look like. How do you develop that habit? And 2 things that they mentioned is to just always imagine, even if you're talking with your buddies on your team, always imagine that there's somebody from the other side there. Or what Greg said, always imagine that Jesus is there. And that will help curb and help shape the way that you say things and how you represent the other side. And then number 3, just reiterates, if you're going to attack something, attack ideologies, attack belief structures, attack ideas, but we are not allowed to attack or judge individual people outside of the church. And then number 4, strive to put yourself in other people's shoes, to try to understand not just what they believe, but how did they get to that point where they believe that, and that will help us have a more compassionate and understanding and empathetic understanding of the people that we are wrestling with. So that is my summary, and man, it's been a few days. It was a little rusty there, but that is there's probably a bunch of stuff that I'm missing just because it's dissipated under the time that has passed, and plus the storm that blew through. It probably blew away in the wind if there's stuff missing. So
It did. It blew away in the wind. So you didn't miss a thing. It's gone. No, good summary, Dan. And yeah, it like sands in the hourglass, like time has passed. And so I too had to go back and relook at my notes and kind of listen through a little bit again. This is okay, we're real on the MuseCast, right? Like we're just honest and real folks. This was my least favorite sermon, not because of Greg and Bill, but because of what it meant for me personally. Because I know our call to be peacemakers, and I ascribe mental assent to that. And I've talked to you guys about how, but it gets real, in the carpool line or in the whatever. And so, but even more than that, I felt like this was a real reflection point for me, because what Greg and Bill were sharing, and you brought it up in your summary, was that this isn't just about avoiding something. This isn't just about a lack of resistance or a lack of war. This isn't, like you said, this isn't a lack, but this is actually, shalom is actually a fullness. And when Greg and Bill both were reminding of us of our call to pursue being a peacemaker, I was just like, could I just avoid the nonsense? Could I just opt out and just, do my thing? And, I'll work on what's in my purview and what I can control, but I would like to opt out. I don't want to pursue anything because it does come at a cost. And so that's why I say this was my least favorite, because I am still processing what it means for me. And I can, yes, mentally, I'm aware that we call out ideologies. We can call out evil in that way, but it's not the people. But for me, and I hope I'm not the only one, because it would make me feel better, I feel like we look at the people who speak those ideologies, they represent the ideology to us. Like they are the representative. And so I see them as the ideology. And that's where it gets really hard to believe the best and to think that God loves them as much as God loves me, and that they have hope. It's hard, Dan. I say all that to say it is hard. And so maybe I can sit on your couch and you can help me today, because it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It is our call, and I'm like my heart, I want to be, but wow, it can get tough at times. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, one of the things that I have a lot of thoughts from that. One thing that just keeps coming to mind is something that Dallas Willard said. He said that he was talking about something that he thought was wrong, a wrong belief that people held. And he noted how many really smart people believed this thing. And he inferred from that great minds are capable of great mistakes. And I've always remembered that, what's his name? There is a guy, a really smart psychologist, like in the early budding days of psychology. It wasn't William James. It was somebody that came after him. It's like one of those names with like two initials and then the last name. But he was really,
Okay.
really bright. But he was also a phrenologist. And phrenology was this idea that was really popular like between like 1890 and 1910, somewhere around there, that you could tell how intelligent somebody was by the size and shape of their head. And and
Okay.
and phrenology, that's what that, yeah. And so they that's why, like, this will come as a shock to you, but white men tended to have bigger
Mm,
heads than women
mm.
or people of other races. And isn't that something? But but a lot of these, Galton, that was his name, Galton, I think,
Okay.
Sir Francis Galton. I think he was a phrenologist, and but like some really, really smart people believed that. And just because they believe this horribly stupid thing, it doesn't necessarily negate other really smart things that they believe. And so great minds are capable of great mistakes. And so that's always helped me, because even if somebody believes something that I think is just absolutely horrible, that doesn't mean that they're not a great person. That doesn't mean that they're not a
Yeah.
great mind. It's just that they're really wrapped up in a really dumb belief. and
Yeah.
um and that's the first thing. The second thing is, to play that in the other way, there is this pressure, like I feel this pressure, like I don't want people to think I'm dumb. and
Yeah.
um and so it also gives me permission to make mistakes, because even
Yeah.
if I'm wrong about this, and I've made a great mistake, that doesn't mean that I'm an idiot. I mean, I just was wrong about that. And so that helps me as
Yeah.
just kind of a baseline.
No, that is helpful and good. And it reminds me of, well, the story that Greg shared about years ago when there was a trial here in Minnesota about a guy who killed a child. And two, for me, that's hard. Like I've
Yeah.
said time and again, I could never be God because there are certain things that are just off limits for me. I would
Yeah.
just be like, scorched earth, because I feel like kiddos, you know what, like off limits. But in his prayer time, seeing a vision of a young boy who was obviously beaten up and scared and hiding in a closet. And at first he was confused because he thought, is this the little boy who's dead? But then he felt like it was the perpetrator, the guy
Yeah.
who killed the little boy. And it's just, so that helps. And even if everyone that I come against, I feel like is being harmful with their words and their ideologies, even say they don't have a sad backstory, it doesn't matter. That they shouldn't have to have that for me to have the ability to see them as a child of God and someone worthy of God's love. And so I am a work in progress, but what you shared just now, and it, like I said, reminded me of what Greg shared, is helpful. So
Yeah.
I will continue to meditate on that, and we'll see how it goes.
Mm.
Yeah. So I just think it's important. I really appreciated how they talked about what shalom truly is, right? It is, and God is inviting us. He's inviting the world into his shalom, and our job is to join in with what the Spirit is doing. And so that means bringing reconciliation and harmony and wholeness and peace. And that sounds amazing. So I should be on board with like striving to bring those things forward, and not try to hide from it all, and just be in my own little cocoon of happiness. That's just
Yeah.
not reality. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think here's the other thing I would say is the behaviors that we do that will eventually lead to shalom are not the
Yeah.
shalom itself.
Right.
And so shalom is sort of the dream, that's the ideal, that's the goal. I mean, it's kind of like, if I'm in graduate school and I'm reading, I don't know, maybe an academic book, a 600-page academic book with, 6,422 footnotes, and it takes me about an hour to read every page. that is not the dissertation that I'm writing. That's not the PhD itself. This is just one little step toward that. It sucks. Having the PhD is going to feel really good, but boy, doing this is not as much fun. And I think that's sort of being a peacemaker is like that, is like the work that you have to do, that you'll never get the shalom without that work. But the work itself is not the shalom. And it just, you can't, it's if you can enjoy that work, that's great, but you shouldn't expect to always enjoy it. That's one caution I would give, I guess.
Yeah, no, that is such a good reminder. And it actually makes me really excited for I'm going to do the slight little turn that we're doing in this series, because we're going to start getting into some of the internal work, some of those heart postures that when we lean into those and just focus on those, I believe that's kind of like laying the foundation to get to this place of shalom. And so I'm really looking forward to that, because I think that will help. Because you're right, if we just look at this end result, holy buckets, that can seem impossible. But no, there's actually things that we can do, which goes back to one of their points about making this a habit of the heart, cultivating these virtues. I think we're going to start to get into some of that. So I don't know if I'm giving away too much about what's upcoming or what, but I'm happy for the turn.
Me too. I am too. And for that very reason, I feel like as we're moving into these more specific heart postures, I think it really sort of opens up kind of in a more intimate, kind of personal way, how these types of things, even though they're not easy, they can be very empowering, I think. And that's why I'm most excited about them. And, the 2 Corinthians, I think it's 2 Corinthians 5, where Paul talks about we are battling and we are pushing back against these strongholds, these faulty precepts from the enemy, and I think that's a stronghold is like this wrong belief, and a precept is this assumption that we bring into every situation. Where do those come from? Well, a lot of those come from messages that are implanted in us through our culture, through the media, through whatever, and those are not always godly. And a lot of those, they sound really good, they feel really good, they seem intuitive, and yet they keep us from that shalom. And I think these heart postures are ways of not only exposing these precepts, these assumptions that we didn't even know were there, guiding our behaviors, but not only does it expose it, but it also gives us a counterattack to it that not only pushes back against that precept, but I think empowers us in a way that I don't know. I think is empowering and good in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm excited about it too.
Well, good. I think today's show, Dan, is maybe going to be a little more brief, only because of the craziness of yesterday. But then there weren't, so we didn't really have a ton of time or power to go and look at comments and stuff. So I say all that to say, do you have anything else, or shall we get to?
Yeah,
You're not looking at me to see what I'm doing.
Let's see. Do you have could you pull up 1 Peter 2:11?
I can't.
Oh, you don't have a Bible. Oh, okay.
I'm just at the church, in my office at the church, and I was like looking around. I was like, I don't have a Bible. What is wrong? This is why I need to be home.
Yeah.
This show.
It's so.
Oh, see, you can't be trusted, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right. With that, I think it's nugget time.
All right. Woo!
All right. And you can go first. So take that.
Well, I think boy, I don't really even have a nugget other than I think that was sort of I'll just reiterate that because I think that
Yeah.
is, I think most helpful for me is just great minds are capable of great mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'll just add this dimension to that. I think that we have a tendency to just lump a person's beliefs in with who they are. And
Yeah.
it's not Bill who thinks that the government is too big. It's Bill the Republican. That's just who Bill is. And they merge together. And that life is complicated and we need little heuristics like that to just organize everything. And but we do ourselves harm if we let ourselves view others in such a simplistic way,
Yeah.
and we don't give them the benefit of the doubt. We don't allow that, yeah, Bill might believe in a small government now, but maybe in 5 years he won't. And maybe Bill is a registered Republican or Democrat now, but maybe he'll change his tune. And I know I have in multiple ways over the years. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that's the part of the importance of separating a person from what they believe, because what they believe, man, that changes so much. And so giving them that benefit of the doubt, giving them that grace and that space to evolve, I think is really, really important.
That is so good, Dan. We are all hopefully a work in progress. And because it's an election season, I've done a lot of reflecting on some of my previous thoughts, beliefs, ideologies. And I can say that I feel like I have learned. And when you learn, when you know better, you try to do better, right? And so I think we're all a work in progress. And it's important to remember that, like, that is the grace of God, that he doesn't leave us as he found us, right? But he pulls us to something bigger, better, greater, and more like him. And so if that's the truth for me, then it's the truth for you and everyone else, even if I am reluctant to see it, because that's me. I am a work in progress. So I love that. For my nugget, I just want to tag on and just remind us of our 4 points. Peacemaking is not always successful. That was like such a yes, aha, light bulb moment, because listen, we don't do this for a guaranteed outcome from the other person, the other side. Like, we do this because this is who we are called to be as children of God. And so it is not always successful, but all we are responsible for is for how we respond and how we behave in situations. Peacemaking is a habit of the heart. So it's a virtue, a habit that needs to be cultivated and developed over time. And so I think the fact that we're talking about it, being honest about it, is really great. Call out ideas, do not judge individuals. Like Dan just said, we tend to, and like I said, too many times the people represent the ideology and we fuse it together, and that's just who they are. And that is really, man, that is, again, limiting God's creativity and his ability to do wondrous things in people's lives. Put yourself in the other shoes. One of the things that really pricked my heart was when, and I forget who said it, whether it was Greg or Bill or a combination of them, but they said that, ask yourself the question, if I grew up where or how or when a particular person grew up, that I'm seeing things differently, that like, would I behave any differently than they are behaving? And so that's just like, sometimes we are victims of our circumstances, and sometimes we are the opposite of that. Like, we are blessed because of our circumstances and it had nothing to do with us. So I think all of that to say, it's not a nice, tidy little nugget today, but it's remembering those 4 practical points, remembering what Dan has said about us. Like, man, hopefully we are all just a work in progress, and let's have the grace for one another to do that while still standing up and calling out the things that we know are not good, or are really damaging, but still separate that from the person. That's the key. And just try to understand that sometimes we think what we think because of where we were born and how we were raised and what's been afforded to us, or the people that we know, or the people we have in our lives, and not everyone has that. So that's my nugget that I am going to be chopping up and chewing on for quite a while, I think, because, like I said, work in progress.
That's awesome. That's good. Well, and that's a good summary too of the 4 points, which I think is also very important.
Good.
So yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
so that was our severe weather delayed MuseCast,
There you go.
and you had mentioned about the how circumstances can uh, be a blessing, and we're not just victimized by circumstance, but we're also blessed by circumstance. Well, I felt that the last couple days, having
Mm,
without the power, because there are so many communities that, they have, 10 minutes of electricity a day. And
yeah.
so they will go to the village where there's a laundromat, and there's one outlet and like 65 different charging devices in there as people are trying to charge their stuff, and they have to hike it, for miles to get there just to do that. And here I was just, without power for a couple days, and it really makes you realize, like all my productivity and all the stuff that I do, it's fragile. It's so fragile.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
good to remember that circumstances can bless us in ways, and we tend
Yeah,
to forget about
we
those.
do.
We tend to remember
Yeah.
distinctly the pain, and we
Yeah.
forget all that. So
The blessings. Yeah.
yeah,
So good, Dan. All right. Well, show them where they can reach us now
yep,
that the power is back on.
yep,
MuseCast at
that's right.
whchurch.org. We'll miss chatting with you this week, but hey, I'm telling you, stick in and tune in this Sunday as we turn the corner and kind of start talking about some of these heart postures. Be praying for Dan as he's going to bring us the good word this weekend, and circle back. We'll be here next Tuesday and we'll be able to chat with you as well. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Take care. Everyone be happy and glad that Dan is safe.
Yay.